The Requiem heads are still alive, I am convinced, and this is the evidence. So of course we were all extremely shocked when we got the Modern Warfare Zombies intro cutscene in which we saw Weaver and the other Requiem heads, Strauss, Carver, and Dr. Gray, all deceased attached to an Ethereum device in a bunker under a hotel in Urzikstan. However, I believe that Trek would have not shown us this at the beginning to spoil the ending of Black Ops 6 Zombies unless this was some kind of red herring that was going to be resolved at a later point. Because this is a big part of Black Ops 6 Zombies' plot, and I wholeheartedly believe they wouldn't have shown us this unless there was more to it. Now, of course, even though they have shown us this, there is still a lot to speculate about. We don't know how they got here, we don't know exactly why they got here. I've speculated in prior videos why I think, which I'll go on to later in this video, but at the end of the day, that is just speculation. This is the main topic that everyone in the community has been talking about since the launch, so I kind of don't agree with the sentiment that this spoils completely what happens in Black Ops 6, because, like I said, we don't know exactly how we got here, and at the end of the day, it was prophesized by the Forsaken that this would happen. All would die at the hands of seemingly Samantha Maxis in the background. So the biggest piece of evidence as to why the Requiem heads are not truly deceased is this new radio that was just added into the game, which I'll let you listen to now from Ravenov.
Having been inside a rift now, I am troubled. What I heard on the other side sounded very much alive. Not like these other creatures we have been dealing with. This one is different. Dangerous. I can feel Eva fading as it gets stronger. She is not herself. Even worse, she's doing everything to hide it. We feared something like this would happen. And that is why I stayed here, always watching. And yet I was unable to stop this catastrophe. And I know it is not her fault, but this child, woman, she is a magnet for disaster. And this thing on the other side, I do not understand it. And anyone who would is long gone. All I know is she is in danger. But this time, I do not know how or when the enemy will strike. Perhaps I was not the one who needed to stay behind.
So this radio is of course foreshadowing the reveal that Ava and the Entity are basically the same person split into two, a reflection of each other, with the Dark Ether version being her shadow, in a similar way to Monty and the Shadow Man. Ravenov says, "We feared something like this would happen, and this is why I stayed here, always watching, and yet I was unable to stop this catastrophe. And I know it's not her fault, but this child, this woman, is a magnet for disaster." He goes on to say, "All I know is she is in danger, but this time, I do not know how or when the enemy will strike. Perhaps I was not the one who needed to stay behind." And there we have it. This is confirmation that this is not the last we've seen of Requiem. Specifically, he says stay behind, implying that the Requiem heads have gone elsewhere. And this perfectly lines up with what we've been theorizing about in videos, because I believe that the Requiem heads sacrificed themselves using this Ethereum device to allow Ravenov to have extended life and live for longer. That is why he has barely aged.
I am still fighting.
And here's the thing, you shouldn't be. That was 30 years ago, and look at you.
I have good genes.
Oh, that's a crock and you know it. What was the focus of Requiem's Ethereum research?
Dr. Johnson.
And we see there are 2 Ethereum canisters missing from this device. Of course, Zakhaev then takes 2 of them, the remaining 2. So 2 seemingly have been used. I believe 1 has probably been used on Ravenov and the other one probably on Eddie Richtofen, both of whom probably now have extended life, and I think Richtofen is behind the scenes in Modern Warfare 3 Zombies orchestrating things. I think that the Requiem heads basically gave up their essence, their life force, to Ravenov and whoever else took this other canister. However, Requiem's souls, I believe, believe have simply just gone into the Dark Ether. They're not gone forever, they're just now in the Dark Ether. And this would make sense with the prior cutscene where Ava Jansen hallucinates seeing the Requiem heads, Weaver and the rest of them now deceased, as the zombies chasing her, but they all have glowing purple eyes. And this is because, as Dr. Gray explains within the latest cutscene, Requiem were dying. They have been highly exposed to Ethereum and it is killing them. So I think before they died, due to this enriched Ethereum exposure, they instead put their souls into the Dark Ether so that they would then probably be able to return at a later date. And in giving up their souls, they allowed Ravenov to live for longer. Ravenov has been tasked specifically with watching over Ava Jansen to take care of her, because I guess Ravenov of course does not want her to reconnect with the entity. If that happens, that could be a goal for Project Janus, for Eddie Richtofen for example. Whatever happens, it'll be catastrophe. That is why he was chosen to stay behind. But I believe Requiem's souls are now in the Dark Ether, and I believe this gives them the opportunity to then return into their bodies. And I'm wondering if that is how Modern Warfare 3 Zombies ends. Something happens that allows their souls to reconnect. Now I believe probably in the final story mission of Modern Warfare Zombies, Ava and the entity are going to reconnect, and it's going to lead to some sort of big cliffhanger. She will probably form some big Dark Ether entity who is extremely powerful. And when that happens, God knows what's going to happen from there. After all, in the last cutscene, she was extremely mad at Ravenov for lying to her entire life, uncovering that he is actually her biological father. And because of this, I believe she is extremely mad, and basically the Dark Ether and the entity are going to manipulate that rage that she has within her and use it against her. It's similar to what we've seen before with Samantha Maxis. When she was in the Dark Ether used her anger and loneliness against her. And even when the director was experimenting on her in Block 8, he was trying to purposefully anger her, because it seems that the angrier they get, the more they are able to harness their powers. But I'm wondering if it can be done in the opposite way. Why is it just anger that allows them to unlock their powers? What if it's the complete opposite, and through kindness you can also unlock your powers and maybe even be more powerful in the future? It's kind of a bit of a trope for it to only be unlocked through anger, but nevertheless, I definitely think Requiem are going to return. This is very solid evidence, but what does Ravenov mean by perhaps I was not the only one who needed to stay behind? Who else is he referring to here? It seems like he feels like he's not able to contain the danger that Ava now faces, and he wishes someone else stayed with him to look after her. Now this could not mean much. It could just mean maybe he wanted Dr. Gray or, you know, someone else to look after her. I mean, Gray did raise her up to 3 years old before she then seemingly sacrificed her life and recorded this message, and right before she sacrificed her life, she gave her up for adoption to the Jansens, who were ex-South African National Intelligence. Now here is why Requiem can return. We know that the Dark Ether is capable of cloning beings. Now before Modern Warfare Zombies, we thought that they could only clone people or other beings inside of the Dark Ether, whether it be deceased bodies or other Dark Ether beings. However, Modern Warfare Zombies has proven the Dark Ether is able to literally clone alive humans, and this is what happened with Ava Jansen. But it seems that the Dark Ether is not always accurate, and that's why the entity is of course not one and the same with Ava. She's a Dark Ether version of her. It's cloned her, but not precisely exactly the same, and for this reason the Requiem heads could theoretically be cloned and brought back in the future, could they not? And also, whilst we're on the topic of cloning, I wonder if this leads into the idea of Richtofen's partial goal for Project Janus being to rescue his wife and son that we believe was accidentally killed in a house fire via an assassination attempt on Eddie's life prior to the events of Cold War Zombies. We know he has a wife and son from the portrait on his desk, but we believe they perished, and we believe his son is called Samuel. And in Cold War Zombies, there's intel, for example, that talks about a child, an ethereal orb that is very powerful. So maybe his wife and son have now become ethereal orbs in the Dark Ether, the ones that you go up to and you can hear children screaming and crying and playing, etc. I wonder if Richtofen had a device similar to the one that the Requiem heads used, and before they actually died, he managed to save them by trapping their souls in the Dark Ether instead. Maybe Weaver, Carver, Gray and Strauss are now ethereal orbs in the Dark Ether, and when Ava hallucinates and sees them with purple eyes as zombies, that could just be her interpretation of these ethereal orbs. Or maybe they literally are now zombies in the Dark Ether. We will have to see. But nevertheless, their souls, I believe, are not truly gone, and I believe they can be brought back.
We just have history. Shared history. Shared trauma. You wouldn't understand.
I do understand. In fact, I was very forgiving about the whole thing. I mean, given Weaver's failures and lapses in security, I could easily have had him disappeared.
However, do they have a purpose whilst they're in the Dark Ether? Maybe they're trying to rescue Samantha whilst we were in there, who seemingly was not seen until 6776 days ago, around 2003. So I'm wondering if they went into the Dark Ether using this device, they put their souls in there but had to quote-unquote perish in the real world, maybe only temporarily. They tried to find Samantha, but 6776 days ago they failed. Maybe Richtofen, for Project Janus, he tasked them with trying to find Samantha, but then they failed, and that's why this information is classified under Janus Directive. Maybe they were then killed in the Dark Ether or something like that, that's why they're now zombies, and that would be accurate with what the Forsaken foreshadowed before. I mean, Samantha Maxis is literally behind them as they're deceased, implying it's going to be her that will be responsible for their deaths. Which I guess in a way it is, because Ava is the child of Ravenov and Samantha, but born via surrogacy inside of Dr. Grey, then I guess technically it is somewhat a result of her if Ava played a part in why they had to sacrifice their lives. But yeah, Ravenov was chosen to stay behind, and I believe Eddie was as well. It is really ironic though that Ravenov has been given this extended life and he's then going to probably die. I guess no one should live this long, and it sounds like he is getting tired. It's becoming a massive burden on him emotionally, even if physically he's really in shape.
Now, that means you can't go dying on me.
I am good at keeping promises.
We promised we would find a way to rescue her.
So you're 0 for 2 on those promises?
I only hope this is my last dance with darkness. I just don't know how many more monsters I can slay.
But even if Ravenov does die at the end of the day, we're still going to see him again in Black Ops 6 Zombies before any of this happened. I guess it's a similar situation to what happened with Soap dying in Modern Warfare 3's campaign, but then he returns in Modern Warfare Zombies as a prequel in 2021. I guess it does take away from the emotional significance of his death though, if it does actually happen, if we know we're just going to see him again as a younger version. So that's honestly how I see this story ending. I really think that Ava and the Entity are going to reconnect. She will then kill Ravenov, and then somehow Requiem are going to return. This would make complete sense with why they gave this away as a red herring at the start that they died, because it loops full circle when we come to the end of the story. Maybe Requiem returning as well as Ava and the Entity reconnecting could factor into Eddie's plan, and it could be revealed right at the end that Eddie was working behind the scenes this entire time to set this up. That would be so cool, but is very speculatory of course. And I think that one of the most damning pieces of evidence that suggests that the Requiem heads will return is the fact that it's rumored we're going to be getting another Black Ops game 2 years in a row next year in 2025, that being a Black Ops 2 sequel, so of course set after the events of Modern Warfare 3. Apparently it's going to be in 2030, at least the campaign, so presumably it's probably going to be set after the events of Modern Warfare 3 as Zombies, but how is the story going to continue if we don't even have characters to care about? So it would make sense that they return and then we continue their story in this next game. This way they allow for a big time jump between the 90s game and then this sequel without them having to age massively, as essentially they were in stasis in between. Now another theory that's been floating around here, and this could also work theoretically, is that there's going to be some sort of time travel involved. Now I don't know how much I buy this, because of course in the old Ether story, the reason why it got so messed up and we started having, you know, infinite universes, a multiverse and many fractured universes, was because of the time travels that Ultimus and the other versions of the characters in all of the universes were up to.
We were always doomed to fail. Monty told us the truth. Our journey is the very reason this madness exists. We are the ones who fractured the universe. This is the truth the Chronorium showed me. The truth Richtofen could no longer face.
Because they were time traveling and constantly creating fractures, it broke up the universe. If they incorporate time travel again, would it not just lead to more fractures again and everything just collapsing like it did before? So that's part of why I think time travel is not going to be involved, but I've just seen many people speculating right now that there could be some sort of weird time travel when Ava and the Entity reconnect, presumably at the end of Modern Warfare Zombies, that it may cause them to connect at the point of which they were separated at birth. I guess somewhat similar to in Doctor Who, wherein the 14th and 15th Doctor seemingly separated, but it's assumed that when they regenerate, they will then recombine into two as the time streams collide. Maybe something similar could happen with Ava and the Entity, where they either recombine at the source or something else, and this allows them to then retcon Requiem dying, and they can save them before it even happens. But again, I'm not sure how I feel about time travel potentially being reincorporated, and I'm not sure if I entirely believe this theory, because it would completely defeat the point of Ultimus and Primus's sacrifice, well, Nikolai's sacrifice, since they didn't have a choice, I guess, at the end of Tag der Toten, where they all died and were eliminated from existence. If they're reincorporating time travel, it's the exact same conundrum that they got themselves into last time, and it would also mean the story has the potential to get really messy again, with jumping all through time again, and getting very convoluted. So again, I'm not sure how much I believe this theory. It is partially backed up though by a radio that we got in Cold War Zombies, where they talked about the spectral reflections, which are basically like books from the past. It allows you to see in the past events that have happened inside of the Dark Ether, and I think there's even spectral reflections in the future that you can see in the Dark Ether. So I'm wondering if Ava cloned inside of the Dark Ether could work somewhat similar to a spectral reflection, where she is actually a past version of Ava, and again, when they recombine it may allow them to reconnect at the point of which they separated. But again, this is a wild theory. I have no idea how much this is true, but I've just seen the speculation floating around. But nevertheless, whatever happens, I think Requiem are not dead. I think they are going to return. I think their souls are simply temporarily in the Dark Ether. Who Ravenov is referring to though when he says someone else needed to stay behind, I have no idea. Let me know your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Something else I want to point out is regarding the Terminus Island map, which is seemingly going to be one of the launch maps for Black Ops 6 Zombies, the island map where Peck is heading to rescue the Requiem heads at the end of Cold War Zombies in 1990. Now, this is dated 1990, but like I've talked about in my last couple of videos, on Fletcher's bio, he of course enlisted on Terminus Island for a CIA operation between 1991 and 1993. 1993 was actually when Ava Jansen was born. I'm not sure if that has any correlation there, if she's born on Terminus Island or whatever the case may be, I'm not sure, but nevertheless, the dates don't exactly align up. Presumably, Dr. Peck is going to rescue them in 1990, which means why is Fletcher then enlisted during that time period unless he fails to rescue them? So another possible theory is that maybe they are rescued in 1990, but Richtofen still needs the island for some other purpose from 1991 to 1993, which is why Fletcher is enlisted as a PMC there, even after they are rescued. So a zombie outbreak might happen in 1990, it's collapsed, it's resolved in 1990, there's no zombie outbreak afterwards, because I've been re-listening to Modern Warfare Zombies' radios now that we've learned lots of more information, trying to see if when I look back on them, they provide more clarity. And they seemingly do, because if we listen to the old Fletcher quotes, he doesn't seem to know what Ethereum is. It sounds like this is one of the first times he's heard of it from Zakhaev.
Fletcher here. We got a contract coming down the line that's going to change everything. It's a huge operation. All hands on deck. Well, he's after some crazy element from elsewhere. I've seen what it's capable of. Volatile. It's powerful stuff. Oh, there's heaps of this shit. Supply won't be a problem. I don't know, I'm no scientist, but I know I'll get when I smell it.
And if he was on Terminus Island when there was a zombie outbreak and when Requiem were there in 1990, then surely he would know about zombies and know about Ethereum. He should be one of the most knowledgeable people, and yet he isn't, unless he was just so disinterested he didn't really look into it much whilst he was on Terminus Island, because even if he is there from 1991 to 1993, surely he would have looked into Ethereum and learned something about it at some point. So yeah, that can kind of explain the discrepancy there. They're rescued in 1990, but Richtofen still requires it afterwards, or something else is still going on afterwards, which is why Fletcher is needed. Anyways, that's all I wanted to say in this video. I've got lots more story videos coming up on the channel. Let me know if there's any particular topics you want me to cover. Is there anything you're confused about from the old Ether or this Dark Ether story that I have not tackled in videos that you would like me to try and explain in a future video? Without further ado, thank you for watching the video. Make sure to subscribe if you're not for the latest and greatest Call of Duty news and information. So anyways, thank you for watching, and bye.